Hello. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Someone say yes. Okay, perfect. Hi. Hi, Mary Jane. Hi. Hi, Louise. Wonderful. Thank you for being so punctual. Good. Louise, I can't hear you if you're muted. Good. So we just wait for there's about 35 people that have registered for today, so we'll just wait for them to join us. And here we go. Hi, everybody.
Hey, beautiful.
Hi. Oh my goodness. So nice to see you.
I am camera because I was not planning on joining, but I was like, oh, she sent me the link. Okay, I'll just join in and listen.
Perfect. I'm so glad you're here. Here we go. I am gonna disable waiting room because people will come in late.
You are looking fabulous, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Lovely. Okay, great. So we're just we're 2 on the nose, and there's already so many people here, which is great. We're just gonna wait for more people to join, maybe 1 or 2 minutes, and then we can all, depending on how many we have, we can unmute ourselves, we can introduce ourselves. I'd like again, depending on how many participants we have, I'd like the class to be as interactive as possible, instead of just me talking to you for the whole hour and 15 minutes. So perfect. Hi, Malin. Hello from the Netherlands. How are you? Good. Where's my video? Put me here. Okay, perfect. Excellent. So today we're going to talk about how to heal ourselves, right? So this is a very general, broad sort of a promise that I'm making in terms of how to heal ourselves, because obviously we can be going through various different levels of distress or discomfort. And I'm going to share my screen with you because I've made I've made a handout that I'll send out after the class along with the recording of the class so that you can follow along. Just to have a frame of reference so we can talk about the nature of our discomfort and the root of dis-ease or distress or depression, all of the things that essentially block our health and our vitality. Okay. If you have any questions, please feel free to, by the way, just put them in the chat and I'd be happy to answer them. My intention for today is to bring education and insight and offer some helpful tools so that you can apply them right away and start to see some immediate results in your life. I care, for those of you that have already worked with me, I care very deeply about, helping you facilitate inner peace and an overall sense of well-being, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically and physically. And so today is really just, sort of a 1 hour, me capturing the essence of the work that I do so that you can walk away with some value and hopefully some relief. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Here we go, how to heal ourselves. Perfect. And hopefully that is visible to everyone. And if you have any questions, please feel free to just include them in the chat and I will take a pause at some point and address them and hopefully have a chance to address them during the class. So what are the blocks to vitality and inner peace? So there's 3 main areas where we experience distress, or we experience, again, these blocks where we're not feeling like our happiest selves or like, our best selves physically or emotionally or psychologically. Perhaps we want to be further along in our career or, further have more love in our lives, or whatever it is that we might feel a sense of longing is going to create some kind of distress as well. So the blocks, we experience them mostly in our thought process, in our emotions, and in our physical experience, right? So these are the 3 main areas where we notice that there is, a sense of distress or a lack of peace. Okay, shall we say, for the purpose of this class. So thoughts are formed in early childhood. I very much work on the premise that in early childhood conditioning phase between the ages of 0 to 6, all human beings are in what's called theta wave brain state. And this theta wave brain state can be likened to a state of hypnosis. It essentially means that there is no filter, there's no ego or identity present. These are all synonyms of each other, present to filter out or block out what is being received. So whatever's being told to us or said to us, or even indirectly, the energy that we're surrounded with sort of gets absorbed into our bodies. Okay, and we start to form beliefs about who we are, what we're worth, how life is supposed to work out for us, if life is a struggle, if I'm, unworthy of love, if I'm unwanted, or if I'm a burden. All these beliefs, we interpret the relationship we have with ourselves, who we are, our intrinsic value as humans based on the way that our parents relate to us. And so, some examples of limiting beliefs as I just shared, is I'm unworthy of love, or I am, I need to be perfect. This is one that comes up a lot in the work that I do, in the early childhood conditioning phase, when we're examining what's happening for us on a subconscious level. Okay. So thoughts are important, and the nature of our thoughts begins in this early childhood conditioning phase, when a lot of our beliefs that are being created, that phase is because there's no ego present, there is no reasoning mind present, is an unconscious process. So when we talk about what's happening for us on a subconscious level, we're really talking about some of these thoughts that were formed in early childhood that are now long held values, long held beliefs about, that are informing us about who we are, what we're worth, what we can and cannot have. Okay. And so it's important to address the thought process, and I'm going to talk about that shortly. Emotions, emotions is where we feel a lot of our distress as well. And I'm just checking to see if pardon me. So on an emotional level, a lot of us, the average human being, has a lot of unresolved, suppressed feelings. And these suppressed feelings come from unmet needs. Okay, so as a child, maybe you didn't get your need for acceptance met, or your need for understanding met. Maybe you didn't get your need to be heard met. Most of us, were many of us were raised in environments where, our parents wanted us to behave in ways that were pleasing to them, or that made their lives more comfortable, or made their lives more convenient, which didn't necessarily meet our need for self-expression, or for understanding, or for connection, and for nurturing. And so unmet needs, emotions, that are uncomfortable, are usually unresolved and suppressed feelings from unmet needs, again, in this early childhood phase. Now, when we don't learn to get our needs met in early childhood, we never learn to get them met. This is something that sort of stays with us throughout the course of our lives. If we're not taught how to get our needs met in early childhood, we don't know. Most of the people that I work with are not aware of what their needs even are, never mind how to get them met, right? And so we have to sort of reconnect to what our needs actually are. And so, some examples of unmet needs could, like, as I said, my need for understanding, or my need for acceptance, or my need for belonging. Right? So many of us felt like maybe we didn't belong either in our immediate family environment, or in our social environments, or school environments, and so on. And so it's really important to get clear on what some of those needs are. As we do the inner work here, we're understanding what our thoughts are, what our limiting beliefs are about ourselves. We're also understanding what our unmet needs are emotionally, like my need for love. Love is a need, not a feeling. I have a need for love. I have a need for love from my parents, or a need for love for my partner, and so on. So it's really important to tap into what those needs are. And we'll talk a little bit more about how to do that when we get into the actually how to heal ourselves. So we can see here so far we have a pattern, right? Early childhood conditioning is the introduction of fear. So now fear starts to drive our thinking, right? And these limiting beliefs are fear-based. They're fear-based thoughts. These emotions that are unresolved and suppressed, coming from unmet needs, also creates fear in the body. And fear triggers us into reactive states. It's really important when we talk about unresolved feelings like anger and resentment and, pain, sadness, grief is a big one. Most of us don't know how to mourn. right? Or the loss of something, whether it's a loved one or a pet or a phase of life. We don't know really how to mourn because, we weren't given the tools for empathy or the opportunity to become comfortable with our emotions and to feel into our emotions with compassion and non-judgment. So we're going to learn that here today. So fear can trigger us into reactive states. At the root of every uncomfortable emotion, anger, resentment, loneliness, sadness, at the core of that, there is something that we're afraid of, right? For example, somebody, makes a promise to you about meeting you somewhere or whatever. A friend stands you up, doesn't show up, and that hurts. And we get angry. We may get angry or frustrated. And at the root of that anger and frustration, there is a deeper experience. The anger and the frustration is sort of a secondary response. And the primary emotion is always fear, right? And so this helps give you a frame of reference just to remember that at the root of every reaction, of every discomfort, there is fear, okay? And something, and could be a fear of being abandoned or the fear of being unwanted. Again, triggering from early childhood, okay? It's important too, as we do the inner work, to understand that we're never reacting to the circumstances. The circumstances are always triggering an emotion or a wound that's been there our whole lives, right? So this is can be a lot to digest. What does it mean to have a wound that's been there our whole lives? That something comes along, and you may notice this in your own life, where you have a reaction that's disproportionate to the circumstances, where you overreact to something that can be otherwise seen as benign, and that's possibly because it's triggering a wound that's been left unattended for a really long time. Okay, so and so can be a gift. It can be a gift to experience the fullness of our feelings. And again, we'll talk about the how part here in a minute as I get through this the breakdown of the root of discomfort and pain and disease in our lives. Physical disease, again, sooner or later the body presents its bill. It just after a lifetime of unresolved emotions and suppressed feelings and negative thinking, or limited thinking about ourselves and what we're capable of, this can be very taxing on the body. So the physical aspect is where it comes out last. There is an opportunity to address the mindset, there's an opportunity to address the emotions, and if we leave these two unattended for long enough, then eventually we start to feel the physical breakdown. The body will carry this energy, this unresolved energy. Emotions are energy in motion, and they need a place to go. We need to be able to release them. We need to be able to resolve them in a responsible fashion that gives us relief and inner peace. And when we don't do that, we start to feel aches and pains, and we start to feel discomfort. We can have symptoms that are directly related to some very specific emotions. For example, digestive issues, or problems sleeping, or headaches and migraines, and things that are directly related to suppressed anger or suppressed rage, or that are connected to the thoughts that you have about yourself that were created in early childhood. So we can see from these three areas that they're very much interconnected. We may feel like we're experiencing them separately, or in different areas at different times, but they're really just connected, and they're feeding into each other. Everything that's ever happened to us in our lives is recorded in our cellular memory. And what I mean by cellular memory is I mean that your body remembers as well, not just your brain remembers the memories of what happened, but your body will remember trauma. It'll remember things like a car accident or physical abuse, or something, a personal injury. It will remember that. And so it's important to be able to release to clear that cellular memory, again, in the how to release our emotions, how to feel into our discomfort and disease is something that I'm going to describe next. I'm just scrolling down here to see if there's any questions. No questions so far. Okay, good. So we can see here that fear stays trapped in the body, right? So again, if there is a trauma or an injury, or a sickness, even it could be an intense illness you had as a child, the memory of that is stored in your cellular memory. The body will remember that, and so fear stays trapped in the body, right? And our bodies are always trying to heal, right? As human beings, we have an inherent nature. It's part of our nature to want to harmonize with our environment. And so if there's something that's being introduced into our experience, keeping in mind that our essential nature is peaceful, if something's being introduced into our experience that's not peaceful, like a trauma, like a physical injury, like a limiting belief, or a hurtful experience that creates a negative emotion, this creates trauma. And a trauma is an interruption in the natural flow of something. So it's an interruption in the natural experience we have of ourselves as peaceful, right? And with enough of this over time, right, our bodies will start to create opportunities to heal and to clear away. It can create it, as I mentioned, in various forms of illness, like migraines or digestive issues, or something even more significant and more severe than that. Okay. It's my belief, a personal belief, that every illness has an emotional root. So this, as far as the nature of what is blocking our ability to feel vital, to feel inner peace, to feel healthy, and to feel whole, we're looking at how our thoughts interact with our emotions, and how our emotions eventually will feed into our physical experience. I teach classes on, obviously, how to do this inner work, and how to achieve inner peace. And the first thing we always address is the thinking pattern. What are some of the thoughts, what are some of the beliefs that I have about myself that I'm conscious of? And then we go a little bit deeper to understand what are some of the thoughts and beliefs I have that I'm not conscious of, right? And how these trigger unpleasant emotions. And most of us are actually pretty desensitized to these unpleasant emotions. We've been carrying them around for most of our lives, and we've just become complacent with not feeling joy, or not feeling free, or not feeling excited or happy, a certain level of happiness that might even be available to us that we have no idea of. So these, and it's important to understand too that emotions do the manifesting. So if you've all heard the expression that energy flows where attention goes. And so if you're hanging out in an overall state of feeling, you're going to create more opportunities to feel that way, right? So the thoughts will trigger the feelings, and the feelings will amplify the opportunity to manifest situations, events, circumstances that will create more of that feeling, right? So just to walk you through it, to give you an example, if I have a belief that I am unwanted, and then I have the and that triggers an emotion of fear, of sadness. And at the core of that sadness is fear that might actually be true, right? The fear that I may never feel wanted, or never feel a sense of connection, and that triggers that emotion, and I leave it unattended and unaddressed, and I learn to compensate for that fear through various strategies that may or may not be constructive for me. And then eventually my body will start to express this pain, right? Whether it can be falling apart, or in whatever various form of illness would be the manifestation of I am unwanted. Okay, so these are how these sort of play into each other and connect to each other. And so the good news is that regardless of where you are on the, in this sort of map, if you're dealing with negative thoughts, or if you're just, finding yourself depressed or angry a lot, or resentful a lot, or if you're just finding yourself that you have a lot of physical challenges, like your body's not cooperating with you, it's not doing what you want it to do, or it's not, it seems to not really be supporting you in the way that you see yourself. The way to create congruency, and again, by congruency, I mean, having the experience of ourselves that matches how we view ourselves, right? So that's what all human beings need. We need that the way we see ourselves to match with how we experience ourselves, in order to feel peace, right? In order to feel whole and sane. So the body will do what it needs to do to start to create that sense of congruency, and that's essentially what we're trying to take advantage of, is the opportunity to create congruency. So again, wherever you are in this map, if you're finding that your body again is not doing what you want it to do, you can address it from an emotional perspective, from a feeling perspective, to do the inner work, to see what can be released from the cellular memory to create some more physical freedom. Okay. And so again, all of these are working together, and you can address each one of these areas either at the same time, or independently, and see results in different areas. So if you're working with your thought process, you're going to experience some emotional relief and you'll experience some physical freedom. If you're working with your emotions and you're doing deep healing and feeling work and primal release work, you'll experience some liberation around your thought process and your body as well. If you're choosing to approach it from a physical perspective where you're working on healing your body, you will experience release in those other areas as well. So my recommendation obviously is to do a little bit of everything, and we'll talk about that in a bit as we move through this. Now would be a great time for questions. If anyone has any questions about what you've heard so far, or about the nature of discomfort, or if you have any of your own pains that you would like to share with us, there's not, we have plenty of time and room for questions. If you have anything you want to ask, please unmute yourself and ask away. Okay. Okay, so again, if you feel like you want to ask a question, don't hesitate. I'm going to move on to the next. I'm going to move on to the, oh, here we go. Here's a question. Thank you. Here we go. So let's talk a little bit about this peace process. So over the course of my life as a facilitator and as a human, most definitely as a human first, because I've a lot of these tools are things I've had to develop in my own healing journey. So things that have helped me grow and feel better and heal my body, my emotions, my mindset, and to be able to create the life that I live today. These are just tools that have worked for me. And I believe through hundreds of conversations I've had with people over the years that the key to health and vitality and overall well-being really starts from inside of us. It begins with inner peace. And when we have inner peace, it shifts our outer environment, right? Our insides always match our outsides. And so, most of us, are sort of inundated, especially in the world of professional personal development. We're inundated with opportunities to fix our bodies or fix our externals, or, to have more of things, more income, more better relationships, to fix the external realm. And when we focus on the external realm, what we're really doing is trying to fill some kind of void, right? And this, if you take a moment just to really be honest with yourself, there can be something in your life where you might be really going after, or a goal that you have, just check with yourself to see if this goal is really trying to fulfill something that might be lacking on the inside. And I, and one of the other classes I teach, when I talk about manifestation, I'm really talking about, coming to a place of fulfillment within ourselves, so that when we are creating success and relationships and love in the world, what we're doing is amplifying that which is already whole, perfect, and complete within us. Right. So the work is always to bring ourselves into alignment so that we can feel whole on the inside. The inner peace on the inside, whether it's you're dealing with your thoughts and your emotions and your physical discomfort, those areas, when they come into alignment and when we bring them back to a place of inner peace, will start to thrive. They will start to heal. They will start to cells can regenerate themselves. Beliefs can influence the cells, and we can start to have a different experience just of how we feel about ourselves. And we start to feel differently about who we are. We start to manifest different opportunities, different reflections of this new and improved version of who we are, more reflections of love, reflections of acceptance and approval. And so, the neat thing is that by the time we find this inner peace, there's less of an attachment. I don't want to say there's no attachment, because we're all human, but there's less of an attachment to how things are unfolding on the outside. There's less of an attachment to needing that success, or needing to lose weight, or needing to be in better shape, or needing that relationship. There's less of a sort of fear-based longing around those things when we have inner fulfillment, when we're at peace with ourselves, right? So the goal is always to bring ourselves back to the relationship to self. This is the most important relationship we can ever have, is the one we have with ourselves. So I'm going to go through this peace process, and again, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. or you can unmute yourself and ask away. So in the meantime, I'll walk you through this process. So in this peace process, there are 5 steps, okay? In the first step, we recognize when we're in reaction, okay? And what that means, we basically pause and engage deep diaphragmatic breathing. I'm going to explain the steps and then we're going to practice together, okay? So recognizing that when you're in reaction takes awareness, right? It takes a minute to realize, okay, I'm upset, I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm sad, I'm anxious. Most of us are having these reactions throughout the day. Some of us are better skilled we have higher threshold for these types of emotions throughout the day. So it's important to always remember to pause and realize, okay, I'm in a reaction right now. Okay, so just identify when something's not right, when something is you're having an anxious feeling or an uncomfortable feeling. And as soon as you recognize that, give yourself the space, right, to center yourself. Most human beings, what we tend to do is we tend to shake it off or avoid it, or we try to change our experience, want to fix it, right? So I'm gonna take something, or go do something else, or go have a conversation, or try to make myself feel better. And again, as I mentioned earlier, the body is instinctually always trying to harmonize with its environment, so it wants to feel better. We want to feel better when we're in pain, or when we're in reaction. And so it's important to kind of, before we jump in to try and change what's happening, that we actually go and be with it as it is. Okay. One of my favorite words in English language is equanimity. And I learned this in the Vipassana 10-day meditation. And to learn to be equanimous is a beautiful practice, because it means that we're okay with whatever is. I'm okay if it works out. I'm okay if it doesn't work out. I'm okay if things go my way. I'm okay if they don't go my way. And this is developing this level of equanimity and peace with whatever happens is the most powerful place to live from, right? It means that we are solid within ourselves. We're rooted and grounded within ourselves and connected to the essence of who we are through this practice and through the ability to become equanimous. So this process will help develop equanimity if you continue to practice it, whenever you are in reaction. Engaging the diaphragmatic breathing, helps slow down the central nervous system. So diaphragmatic breathing is essentially taking deep belly breaths. You breathe in, belly out, exhale, let the belly drop naturally. It's different than regular breathing. Most human beings breathe like, in their chest, right? We're going 90 miles an hour, and we're having caffeine, and we're doing a million things, and we have a long list of to-dos, and we're busy, busy, busy. And so there's no time for diaphragmatic breathing. We breathe into our chest, and chest breathing sends a signal to our brains that we're in some kind of danger, right? It triggers a fight or flight response in the body, and it releases adrenaline and cortisol. And this is a very taxing way to live. It's very taxing on the body. It doesn't give room for well-being and wellness. And, when we're in diaphragmatic breathing, we're in relax and digest, right? We've shifted the signal. As soon as I engage a diaphragmatic breath, I'm telling my body that I'm safe. Everything's okay. Here I am, present in the moment. I can rest, I can relax, I can digest, I can sleep, I can be calm, right? The diaphragmatic breathing is probably the number one antidote to anxiety. So even if you just do that, after today, whenever you're feeling anxious, just do some deep belly breaths, you'll notice a significant change in the moment. I also like to engage the breathing because it helps unearth a lot of suppressed emotions. In this peace process, as we work through it together, you'll notice that the one thing you thought you were reacting to in the day, the one upset that you may have, is actually, giving you permission to tap into something much deeper. Again, that's probably been there your whole life. And so it helps unearth this suppressed emotion. It helps bring it to the surface so that you have room to feel. Okay, it's really important, that we understand, and this is a universal rule, depending on whose modality you use, whether you follow me, or there's so many other modalities out there. The only way out is through. And so if you're in any kind of pain or any kind of discomfort or any kind of distress, we have to go through it. We have to be willing to be with it. And again, developing equanimity will give us the courage and the strength to be with whatever is coming up. And giving ourselves permission to feel, which is the second step in the peace process, is going to help disarm some of the fear we might have or the resistance we might have to experiencing our emotions, right? In the second step, when we give ourselves permission to feel, we're giving ourselves permission to experience the fullness of whatever is coming up without judgment. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm not trying to change it. I'm not, upset about it. I'm not beating myself up about being sad or about being angry or about being frustrated. I see this a lot in spiritual community where, we're spiritual, so we're not supposed to be angry, or we're not supposed to be, upset, and we're trying to be always peaceful, and we deny our human experience, right? And this is true, if you're a mom, or if you're a dad, or if you're an authority figure, if you manage a team of people, you want to sort of keep a happy face. You want to, make sure that everyone understands that everything is okay. And so we learn this from our parents, and this gets, played out over and over and over again throughout the course of our lives. We learn this in society, that we have to maintain composure, and maintaining composure is an act of self-betrayal. When we are in distress or discomfort or experiencing disease, it's hard to maintain composure. It's not authentic to what's actually happening, right? So we want to be able to give ourselves, again, you can excuse yourself, you can have a little bit of quiet time, you can do this at night before you go to bed, where you sit down and actually give yourself permission to feel the full range of whatever is coming up for you without judgment. Okay, our parents, I know most of us, if you're like me, no one pulled us aside when we were little and said it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. It's okay. I see that you're upset, and I invite you to just feel upset. I'm just going to hold space for you, right? And so now we have an opportunity to do this for ourselves. A lot of times I refer to this process as a reparenting process, because I have the opportunity to come in and give myself unconditional love and compassion and presence for the emotions that are coming up. So again, we're breathing diaphragmatically throughout this process. In the third step, where we talk about generating compassion and empathy, this is probably the trickiest part for most people. It's most of us don't know what it means to give ourselves compassion and empathy, to generate unconditional loves, for ourselves. The soothing part, learning how to soothe yourself, will deepen the healing process. And it's going to teach you how to love yourself, how to, being present with with your pain in the moment without judgment, is just observing, and then learning to generate unconditional love and compassion is sort of like next level. Like, okay, now I'm just really honoring the experience I'm having, and I'm being really gentle with myself in this process. Remember that the reason there is a reaction, as I mentioned at the beginning, is because at the root of that reaction, there's fear, right? There is pain, and at the root of that, there is something that we're afraid of. Okay, we're going to talk about that next. And so we want to soothe ourselves. In soothing ourselves, we do that the way you would a small child. You talk to yourself the way you would talk to the younger version of you, or to, the part of you that's wounded, that is likely still a remnants from childhood. So making sure that we relate to ourselves with kindness and with compassion, and with non-judgment. Maybe you lost your mind at something, someone upset you and you lashed out in anger, and now you want to sit and do this peace process. You can recenter yourself, and you're beating yourself up about the way you behaved. The only way out of repeating that pattern is to generate compassion and self-empathy, right? Is to be really compassionate with ourselves, and understanding that, wow, I really had a need for understanding or connection, and that need didn't get met, and so I created these upset feelings, and I didn't have the wherewithal or the awareness to pause, engage my diaphragmatic breathing, give myself permission to feel, and offer myself empathy. Okay, as we learn this process and we repeat it over time, at first it can be a little clunky and mechanical, but as you repeat it over time, it starts to become a working part of who we are, right? And we can sort of check ourselves in the moment, and then start to do this, so that we can create some space between our reaction and what we're about to do with our reaction, and give ourselves peace. Okay. Again, don't skip over the empathy and the compassion, because this is what we all need, especially in the worst of times, and in the moments where we feel most ashamed of ourselves or upset about what happened. This is really the key component to this process. In step 4, I'm asking you to identify what the fear is. And so, we've already said here several times that at the core of every reaction, at the root of every upset or discomfort, there's fear. You can be angry about your, husband not doing what he said he was going to do. And at the core of that anger, there might be a fear that, you're not going to get your needs met, or there might be a fear that you're not loved or that you're not important, right? And so it's important to identify, like, what is it that I'm afraid of? What am I afraid of? I'm anxious right now. What is it that, that I'm afraid of? And so this helps create some context, and it helps gives us a little bit of understanding. So we're expanding our self-awareness, and as we're exploring our inner life, trying to see what some of our fears are. If you do this process often enough, you might find that the fear is the same. It keeps coming up. It's the same fear. There are similar fears that you might be working with. And the more that you continue to work with them, the more they start to dissolve. Okay. In the next step, we're talking about step 5. I'm asking you to choose a higher belief. So this is kind of the healing balm at the end of the process. Practice a thought that supports how you wish to feel. So we've gone from being in reaction. So I'm in reaction, I'm emotional, I'm not thinking straight, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm distressed. And now I'm going to pause because there's nothing productive I can do right now, right? There's nothing that I can do in this particular state that's going to be helpful. So the only thing I can do is pause and engage my diaphragmatic breathing and allow my central nervous system to calm down. And then I give myself permission to feel the full range of my emotions with non-judgment, just exploring what's there. And I start to generate compassion and empathy for myself. In the next phase, by this time, I've sort of gained composure. I've gained, that as we say, recentered myself, and I'm more clear about what's happening. I can start to scan and examine what some of my fears are. And from here, I can choose a different thought. In the classes I teach, and the work I do with people one-on-one as well, I introduce affirmations. Affirmations are great. They are always a part. Affirmations are not the answer, but they are part of a bigger process, right? So the process being, as you see here from 1 to 5, we go into the wound, into the reaction, into the experience. We embrace it. We love ourselves. We examine what our thinking might be that might be out of alignment with how we choose to feel or how we want to experience ourselves. And so now we're going to choose a higher belief. This is where I get to rewrite my script. I get to rewrite what's happening for me from a belief system perspective, from a subconscious perspective. I get to recreate my reality. So I can choose an affirmation as, if I'm working with feeling unwanted, I can say, I love and accept myself exactly as I am. I am worthy of love, or, I am willing to receive love, or I feel seen and valued in all of my relationships. So these are important statements. Again, wordsmithing is kind of an art. It's important to choose language that is rooted in the present moment, that is feels realistic and accessible and easy to say. It feels good to say. Again, in this process, the goal is a state change. We're going from reaction, distress, into empathy, compassion, loving ourselves, and into having a completely different experience of ourselves by the end of it. And hopefully the goal is more peace, right? So when you have that state change and you move out of fear consciousness, because reaction is fear, and into source consciousness, which is love, right? Now I love myself. I choosing inner peace. I'm choosing compassion. I'm choosing empathy for me. And I'm solidifying that with this new belief, this new statement. And when I say this new statement, it's like, I'm just affirming my nature. I am worthy of love. I'm worthy of support. I'm seen and valued in my relationships. I believe in myself. You can say I trust my body's ability to heal, whatever it is that you might be dealing with. We can have affirmations that are relevant to our physical well-being, our emotional well-being, our mental well-being. Like I said in the beginning, it doesn't matter which area you address first, because they all sort of are working together all of the time. The body is always expressing the unresolved emotions that are being triggered by the subconscious thinking, or most of the time it's subconscious thinking. So hopefully that's clear to everybody. So this is how this peace process works: recognizing the reaction, giving ourselves permission to feel, and giving ourselves empathy, identifying the fear, and choosing an affirmation that works, or a higher thought that works. Good. So I am going to just pause here for a minute because I'm talking a lot. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to put in the chat menu? Anything you're dealing with specifically that you might want to use this process for, or that you're curious about whether or not this process can help you with? Okay, so I will, let's practice. Okay, let's do it. And so sometimes we talk about things and it's more important to experience them. Oh, good. I'm so glad. Thank you. All right. So if there is something that you want to work on, like, don't be shy, bring it. I would love to address it. So, because whatever you're dealing with, I've learned in my lifetime of facilitating group work that birds of a feather flock together. So everybody that's here is generally dealing with some kind of similar issue in their lives. And so if you want to share it, that would be great. And if not, we're going to practice together. I ask you to simply take a moment wherever you are to get comfortable, and just close your eyes. Close your eyes and just give yourself permission to be guided. This is where the real work happens, right? We can talk concepts and ideas and strategies and steps all day long, but doing the actual work, and giving me the honor of facilitating this process for you is where you'll get to experience real value. So with your permission, I would like to begin just again, deep diaphragmatic breaths. Identify somewhere in your life something that might be a discomfort. It can be physical discomfort. It can be a reaction you've had, or something that you feel stressed about or concerned. It can be a concern about a worry about the future. Just give yourself permission to feel, to breathe into the diaphragm, identifying whatever the discomfort is, and moving right into step 2. This process is meant to be fluid. So moving into step 2, in step 2, I give myself permission to feel the full range of my experience with non-judgment. It might be a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. It's supposed to be uncomfortable, right? We learn to sit with our discomfort. As we do this, even in the early stages, we're developing equanimity. Maybe you're anxious, or scared, or lonely, or frustrated. Maybe you're in pain, physical pain. Good. And as you're giving yourself permission to feel whatever it is that's coming up for you, it can be deeper, maybe there's some emotions coming up. You maybe need a good cry. By all means, this is a process that is meant to unsuppress you, right? So to free you of that suppressive way of being, and to give yourself space. Good. And in the next step, I invite you to generate compassion and empathy for yourself. Right? So what does it mean to have empathy? It just means to really connect with your experience, to feel for yourself, to relate to yourself like someone you love and care about. maybe there's an inner dialogue going like, wow, I really, I really got upset there and I really wish I hadn't. And I'm willing to forgive myself, or I'm willing to, accept that happened and give myself love and compassion. Remember that there is an unmet need. When we're in reaction, fear is being triggered in our thought process, and it triggers our emotions, and there is an unmet need. So if you relate to yourself like a small child who's not getting their needs met, it starts to open up the space for compassion and empathy. Maybe you need to forgive yourself for something, or accept something that's past that you cannot change. When we become aware of whatever our unmet needs are, we stop judging ourselves for our behavior, right? We start to see why we do the things we do, or why we react the way we're reacting. And this is liberating. Perhaps you have a frame of reference for compassion and unconditional love and, empathy in your life. Maybe you have a pet or a child, or, a loving friend or supportive person in your life, and you can sort of borrow that feeling and start to create it for yourself. So it helps to have a frame of reference for some of us. And what I can say about this step is to be generous. Really be generous with yourself. Don't skimp over compassion and self-empathy and unconditional love. Good. So you should already start to feel a state change. At this point, you're breathing diaphragmatically, you're giving yourself love, the emotions have settled or subsided, and there is more peace already happening in the body, right? And already the cells are shifting, and there is an opportunity for healing, and healing is happening now, right? So as we move into the next step, step 4, we're going to take a minute to scan our bodies, just to scan, what's happening for us in the moment. Maybe you want to take a step back and look at the whole situation from a broader perspective. Start to ask yourself, what is it that I might be afraid of? What is the deeper root of this reaction? What is the core of it? What is my fear? I'll give you a hint. The core of ego consciousness, and what keeps us in fear-based thinking, is the fear of the annihilation of self. So the loss of identity, right? And that identity is usually one that we are aspiring to. It can be a successful version of ourselves, or a healthier version of ourselves, or a loving version of ourselves, or a connected version of ourselves. So there can be the fear of the loss of this identity. And as soon as you make some connection with whatever it is you're afraid of, just keep the diaphragmatic breathing going and the compassion going. One thing I would like to offer you in this step is that fear is a conditioned response to a perceived threat. It isn't true, and it isn't real. We're not talking about the primal fear that we experience if we're in physical danger. We're talking about the perceived fear of not having our needs met, or not having the things that we want. Good. And in the next step, in step 5, I invite you to choose a higher belief. Let's pick a thought that supports the version of yourself that you want to feel as now, right? So, and if it feels inaccessible, you can insert the word willing. I'm willing to heal, or I'm willing to experience myself as free, or I'm willing to receive love. I'm willing to love and accept myself exactly as I am. Sometimes we need the willingness to open up the pathway or the doorway rather, to a deeper experience of loving ourselves and accepting ourselves. And that's okay. That's what willingness is for. I'm willing to be at peace with myself. I'm willing to accept myself. I'm willing to be equanimous with whatever is. And you can say one affirmation, or you can say several. And just repeat this a few times and hang out in this energy, sort of this juicy space that we've created here together. And when you're ready, you can slowly and gently open your eyes, come back to your body, come back to the present moment. And welcome back. Good. I would love to take some sharing. I know I keep asking, but if anyone wants to unmute themselves and bring yourselves into the conversation, I would love to know if you had a state change, if you had an experience of relief in this process, and how it worked for you. Is anyone willing to share? Okay. That's okay too. All right, good. Well, hopefully you did have some relief, and you were able to transcend something or work through something. Again, I'm going to be sending out, we're going to be sending out the recording of this class and these documents as well, so you have them. And you can use them freely and hopefully practice this process so that you can have some peace in your life and learn to cultivate this level of well-being. As we address each, all we can ever do as human beings, sometimes we try and tackle it all at once. We want to tackle our mental state and our physical health and our, everything that's going on at the same time. And my invitation for each of you that are on board and willing to practice this process and willing to have better health and more vitality and more inner peace is to really just address each moment at a time, one moment at a time, to do, to feel into the information that your body might be giving you, that your emotions are presenting, that your thought process is revealing to you, and just take it one reaction at a time, one fear-based experience at a time, infusing love and compassion and empathy and higher thinking into each moment. And again, adopting this as a practice, hopefully this becomes not just something you do occasionally to fix things, but it becomes a way of life. It becomes a process, a way that you live and a way that you practice being human with yourself and being human with others. And so hopefully this is something that you can use and that will start to open up the pathway for healing in all areas of your life. So just briefly to wrap up, we, I know we have until, hold on a second, I think we have a question. Yeah, I'm excited. Oh, good. I'm so glad you've got a new insight. If you can share the insight, Malin, if you want. But I won't put you on the spot. If you want to unmute yourself, you can. This is an hour webinar, and I put I think we added 15 minutes in case anyone had any questions. So we'll just wrap up here at 3 if there are none. I just want to go over this last sheet with you. General methods for healing. So obviously my signature process and my gift to you today is this peace process about learning how to, feel and experience, the full range of our emotions, identifying the fear, practicing self-empathy and compassion, and choosing a higher belief. In general, when I work with people, in the classes I teach, there are other things that we can do to create the environment for healing. For example, if you're someone who is, dying of cancer and you're in that cancer consciousness, and, I have several clients that I've worked with that have, recovered or in the process of recovery. When you're in that consciousness, it's, you're getting chemo and your people are relating to you like you're dying, or there's this sort of we start to sort of fall into this consciousness of I'm at the end of my life, or that I'm interfacing with my mortality. And so it can be very difficult when we are in that consciousness to swim against the current, right? To rise above our belief, the belief of what's happening, and be able to adopt this idea that we can recover, we can heal, or we can at least give ourselves peace and learn to be equanimous with what's happening so that we can eliminate suffering, right? And so general methods for healing, all around are, one of the things that I introduced on this sheet here is introducing a higher vibrational frequency. So sometimes, the inner work is there, we're doing that, but we can do other things to help us along, like, listening to high vibrational music, or reading sacred texts, or, practicing mantras, or chanting, watching heart-opening movies, and laughing with our friends. These are different. All these things have a higher vibrational frequency, and when we immerse ourselves in higher vibrational frequencies, that can be very uplifting in and of itself. For for those of you that may or may not have experience with the 12 steps, it's very typical to walk into a 12-step meeting and you can just kind of feel the energy in the room. The energy of the steps calibrates very high, and so we can just kind of experience that energy. Or maybe you're walking into a church, that was beautifully crafted, or, architecturally mastered, and, there's a high vibrational frequency in that environment. So who we are aligning with, and keep this in mind, even in terms of your relationships and your friendships, and the dialogue that you're exposed to, the conversations you're having, if you're around a lot of negative people, gossipy people, that kind of thing, all that kind of stuff can really have an impact on our overall energy field. So, there's things that we can do to sort of better our environment, to put ourselves in a more uplifting, elevated space, so that we're anchoring ourselves with the inner work and the external environment as well. So this is very helpful, especially if you're in a place in your life where there's really very little energy available to you. Again, you can be in a deep depression, or in physical discomfort, and so on. So when there's little energy available in the inner realm, the outer sort of anchors can help facilitate the required awareness and the required motivation to work through whatever it is that you might be suffering with. So let's go through this list. Bringing the subconscious mind into alignment with our conscious desires. This is number 1 in my list, because in the classes I teach, we start with understanding what's happening for us on a subconscious level. We want to bring these two into alignment, right? The subconscious mind is responsible for 95% of whatever it is that we're creating. At least that's what the statistics say, and that's been my direct experience. So if I'm aware of what I'm holding on to subconsciously, I can bring that into alignment with what I consciously desire. Let's say I have a desire to be in loving partnership, but I have a belief that I'm unworthy of love because of my childhood. It's going to be really difficult for me to accomplish that goal, to have that be a reality for me, right? So it's important for me to do the inner work, to bring my subconscious into alignment with what I consciously desire. A tip for training the subconscious, this is super easy. Anybody can do this right away. You can start tonight. You could do, there's different apps available. I like to use one called Think Up. And we can send that out as well with a recap of this class. And you can record your affirmations and listen to them at night just before you drift off to sleep. That's usually the time when we're in theta wave brain state. So you can drop into theta if you're an avid meditator and you're well versed in practicing meditation. For the average human, theta wave comes naturally just before we go into delta. So just before you drift off to sleep, listening to your affirmations at night will help program the subconscious, and you'll wake up feeling different. You won't know why, because it's subconscious training, but you'll feel different. You'll start to feel more positive, a more sense of relief, a more sense of possibility, and of overall well-being. The second one on my list is meditation. Any meditation that resonates you is a good start. There's no one particular method that's better than the other. Just start with 5 minutes. Again, there's a million apps you can download. You can do 5 minutes of calm, or 25 minutes of insight timer, or whatever works better for you. Guided meditations are great, especially in the early stages when it's difficult to be still and to be quiet and to sit with ourselves. So again, meditation will help you develop equanimity. We learn to be at peace with whatever's showing up in our lives, right? And whatever the circumstances are. So meditation is excellent. Inner work, this is what we're doing today: the peace process, feeling into our pain, learning to love ourselves. This is required work for all humans. It really is. There's no one gets a pass. We all have early childhood stuff. We all have pain, from unmet needs in the early part of our lives. It's important just to take responsibility for the quality of our own state and be willing to see that, what happened to me was not my fault, but it's my responsibility to heal from it. And, this is an inside job. So the inner work is something that obviously I recommend to all of you and anyone who is suffering from anything. So the next one I have on my list is movement. This is important. I don't focus a lot on this in my programs because I'm not really I focus more on the inner stuff, but movement is very important. Any kind of exercise that supports the current state of the body. So, if weightlifting is not available and yoga is not available, you can do some tai chi, you can do some stretching, you can do walking, spending time in nature, being out, moving your body and letting the energy circulate and activating your life force energy is very important. So start to incorporate some of that. High vibrational frequencies I already talked about. This is easy, right? You can light some incense, you can use them. I actually have some oils that I'm using today. I have this one, it's called Adaptive, which I love, and it helps sort of calm and soothe anxiety and help deal with anxiousness and stress. So, but scents can open up a frequency. Incense can do that. There can be music, there can be different things that we can put in our environment that sort of helps lift the vibe. Sometimes even getting rid of clutter or redecorating or moving things around in our environment can help sort of change the vibe and gives us more space and more freedom. Clean food choices are important. This is something that I'm sure, this is not new. We're not reinventing the wheel. These are just good tips to have along the way, in addition to the inner work and the peace process that you're going to use, hopefully after today. Food that is minimally processed and prepared with love. It doesn't have to be a specific diet. There is not one way of eating that's better than another way of eating. Every body is different. And if you practice intuitive eating, just listening to what your body is calling for what it craves, giving it whole foods that have, less chemicals in it, that are minimally processed and prepared with love, intention, right? Love the meal you're making and sit down and give yourself permission to enjoy it. This is the energy around food can be just as contaminating than the food itself. So make sure that you're preparing your food with love, and this is a loving process that you're giving yourself permission to enjoy what you're having, and there's acceptance around what you're eating, even if it's a meal that feels like an indulgence and so on. It's important. Again, it's always about the relationship we have to what we're doing that creates the experience that we're having, right? The next one I have on my list is journaling. Journaling is, forever beneficial to anyone at any point in time in in our lives. Writing out our thoughts and experiences creates clarity, right? We get to put things down on paper. We get to express them out of our bodies. We get to put them out into the universe. We can, talk about, like, release something that we've been holding on to. This is your sacred space. It's a dialogue with the universe. Journaling and getting things out of your system will help create clarity and will help, again, open up the space for inner peace and healing. Visualization is a technique I love. We do this in the classes I teach, where we do a guided process where you can visualize and feel into yourself, developing yourself into your ideal vision with ease. And the key is non-attachment, right? So we visualize ourselves feeling the way we want to feel, and experiencing ourselves as vital and free and peaceful and happy. And that sort of helps anchor the process, and that helps create and manifest the reality of that in our lives. The second to last is number 9 is forgiveness. And I think it should be higher up on the list, actually, because forgiveness is so important. Letting go of resentments and grudges and hard feelings and judgments of ourselves and others is essential to peace. You cannot have peace and be angry with someone. You cannot have peace and have an unresolved issue with someone. You cannot have peace and be holding on to feelings of revenge or vindictiveness. They just don't you just can't have 2 feet in the same paradigm. You have to choose, right? So if we want to have inner peace, again, forgiveness is not about condoning what other people have done or what they've said or how they've treated us. It's not about, becoming a doormat. And just to be clear, we can have very firm boundaries. We don't have to be in a relationship with people that continue to cross boundaries, but we can accept them for where they are, however they're expressing their pain. Human beings that behave in unfavorable ways are generally just expressing pain. So if we can see them with compassion and non-judgment, and forgive them for our sake, so that we can be free, this is an important gift to ourselves. And lastly, gratitude. Training ourselves to focus on whatever we have, our current blessings. Even if you did this list 1 to 10 on a daily basis, just kind of briefly went through each checklist and adopt this as your spiritual practice, you'd be well on your way to achieving inner peace and health and vitality in all areas of your life. Being grateful for this moment, for today, for this class, for each other, for the group, for the internet connection, for Zoom, and the possibility of gathering, during COVID times, for people all over in different parts of the country, different parts of the world, joining us today to be in this conversation. I am so grateful to have spent this hour plus with you. And I hope that you each found tremendous value in what was shared today, and that you walk away with some new insights and some new tools and a little inspiration on how to live better and how to live more peacefully. Once again, I will just leave a few minutes if anyone has any questions or would like to share in the chat. Here we go. Thank you, Diane. Oh, thank you. I appreciate you. Wonderful. I love you all. Thank you so much for joining me today. And have a look at the, we're going to send out an email with the recording and the document, so you have it. And, you all have my email. So if you have any questions ever, you know where to reach me. Oh, I'm supposed to share something with you. I'm teaching a group class called Achieving Inner Peace that starts on May 13th. It starts on a Thursday evening at 5 p.m. Pacific. And if you choose to register today, there is a discount that we are, you're welcome, Louise. There's a discount that we're offering. There's a 10% discount. The course is $5.99. It's 6 weeks. It's a group class. And if you want to register today, you just use the discount code. We will send that out to you in an email. I believe the code is, give me 1 second. Jessica sent this to me. Oh, it's 10 off inner peace. So if you go to my website and Achieving Inner Peace class, the discount code, I will type it in the chat. Here we go. Sorry, I'm still new at this. Here we go. 10 off Inner Peace. And it's 10% off if you want to join us for the group class. We'd love to have you. We meet like this once a week for about an hour over Zoom for 6 weeks, and there's plenty more materials and practice and dialogue, and it's a wonderful group that gets created and a wonderful environment for deep healing and achieving sustainable peace. So hope to see you in the group class. And if you have any questions or want to reach out with me directly, most of you have my email address. I look forward to hearing from you and hopefully working together soon. Here we go. To everyone. Perfect. All right. Thanks, everybody. Blessings.